Hey y'all, welcome back to our YouTube channel and our little corner of the world. I am really excited to be joining you for this video, and I am talking all about my diabetes journey and my story with type 1 diabetes, and just a little bit about what I have struggled with, what I'm learning, all of those good things, and some things that you may not know about type 1 diabetes that I hope you'll find helpful. And if you have type 1 diabetes, I hope that this will be a video where you can just find somebody to relate to and chat a little bit about these things with, because I really haven't shared very much about my type 1 diabetes story on the blog or podcast. I've done a couple blog posts on it, but that's really all. So I'm excited to take a deep dive into my story and just share with you some of the things that I have dealt with over the years. I've had diabetes for 14 years now, and I am still learning every single day more about diabetes and more about how I can really just use it to be an encouragement to others and just encourage them as they're trying to figure some of the same things out too, because I know that diabetes can be a really big struggle and it can be hard to deal with if you're not looking at it through the lens of, this is part of my testimony, this is part of how the Lord is going to use me, and it's not all bad. It doesn't all have to be really disappointing and discouraging. There are ways that we can use our health struggles, not just type 1 diabetes, but any health struggle that you may have or anything like that, to witness to others, to share with them, and to make connections with people. So I hope that this video is encouraging to you. I'm just going to share a little bit about my story, and then I'll jump into, I have my phone here. I'll be looking down quite a bit probably at my phone because I have Instagram questions that I asked you guys a little while ago. I asked you what you wanted to hear about, what you wanted me to talk about in this video regarding type 1 diabetes. And so I will be sharing some of your questions and answering those in this video. But I got a lot of questions just asking me to share my story. So I'm going to start there because I feel like that's the beginning, right? That's where it all started. So I was diagnosed when I was 5 years old, and my brother was only a couple weeks old. So my parents had a newborn and had just gotten home from the hospital with him when I started showing signs for type 1 diabetes. And I really had struggled with like losing weight and drinking a lot of water and different things like that, just trying to cope because I had type 1 diabetes. My pancreas had basically failed. And so I was trying to cope with that and try to keep myself and my numbers under control on my own, because obviously we didn't know at the time that I had type 1. And so my brother was obviously, my parents and my brother were in the hospital after he was born, and we had been staying with some friends. And I remember different points, like I would sneak out to the bathroom at night when we were staying at their house, and I would drink out of the faucet because I was so thirsty, and I was just trying to keep my numbers down because I was so high. And I just remember different things like that. But a lot of like the hospital stay when it came to that, and actually being diagnosed, I don't remember a lot of that actually. It's kind of a crazy story. My mom's a nurse practitioner, so she knows a lot about diabetes and checking and shots and all of those different things. So it's not like that was a whole brand new concept to her. She was just trying to figure out life with a newborn and a type 1 diabetic, and like, how does this all work? And just totally shocked by everything that was happening, obviously. And so the doctors got us in and out of the hospital very quickly, way faster than they typically do, because my mom was like, I have to get home to my newborn. Like, we cannot stay here for 2 days or however long they say that you're supposed to stay and do some of the training and all of that stuff. And so we were in and out of the hospital really quickly. But since then, it's just been a journey of trying to figure out, okay, how do we handle this now? How do we deal with this? And it has been a really, really big learning curve for me, especially because I'm trying to constantly adjust, constantly look at my numbers. It can be stressful. It can be very time consuming. And I feel like I have it a little more down as time goes on, but then you always have a week where it's like, I literally cannot get it down. I can't get it up. It's crazy. There are a lot of different things that impact my numbers. So for instance, and this is a couple of the questions that I got were, what impacts your numbers? How do you deal with that? How do you constantly adjust for different things? And one of the things that I would say I really struggle with is exercise. I have really prioritized exercise over the last year, 2 years maybe, and just trying to be way more active than I was. And that has made a huge difference in my numbers. And I can just tell that I feel better overall. But one of the things that I struggle with is when I exercise, I will drop. So my blood sugar will actually drop when I go for a walk, lift weights, whatever it may be. And so I have to adjust my basal rate, which is just the amount of insulin that my pump is giving me on an hourly basis. And I just think that there are a lot of different things like that that I could share with you that impact my numbers, but it really is different for every person. So some people I've heard and talked with other diabetics who say, no, now when I exercise, I actually go high and my numbers kind of skyrocket. And so I have to bolus before I exercise. And so there are just a lot of different things like that that are different and vary from person to person with exercising or food. For instance, there are certain foods that I know I probably will try to stay away from just because they do make my numbers go really high, even if I do count for it, even if I am bolusing and I even do extra, I'm still going to go high. And so there are different things like that that I may not be able to eat, but somebody else who also has type 1, they may be perfectly fine with that food. So there are different things like that that just impact your numbers and are kind of a struggle sometimes to try to figure out, especially if it's a new food or if you're at a restaurant and you don't know the carb count for everything. So there are different struggles like that, but let's get to some of the questions here. One of the questions that I got was, have your doctors been helpful? I'm just going to start there because there are a lot of diabetics that I've talked with, seen on social media, connected with on social media. And I know that this is just one of those things that is very discouraging when it comes to type 1 diabetes. It is very hard to find a good endocrinologist. It is just very difficult to find one that actually spends time working with you on your numbers and what works best for you and actually listening to you and trusting you that you know what's right for your body and that you're wanting to make the right decision. And it's just really hard when you go in for your routine 6-month, 1-year visits and they spend 20 minutes with you and you're trying to figure all this stuff out. Personally, I have not had a great experience. I wouldn't say I've had a super bad experience. I just have not had a great experience with my doctor. And I don't necessarily blame her entirely for that. It is so hard, I'm sure, to see so many people each day with type 1 diabetes and try to figure out, okay, they can have this food, but then the next person, that does not work for them at all. This person, when they exercise, they go low, but this person goes high. And there are a lot of different things that vary from person to person with type 1. But my doctor has not been entirely helpful. And I will say, one of the things that I have greatly struggled with type 1 and with my doctor is hormones and trying to figure that out. And I just mentioned that. I know we have some guys watching, so if you want to skip forward and skip past this, that's fine. But I know that there might be some teenage girls listening, some younger women listening that need to be encouraged by this because I have struggled for a long time trying to figure out how hormones impact my numbers, and it is so different month to month that I am constantly adjusting. I'm constantly trying to figure out, okay, that worked last time. Will it work again this time? And there are different things like that. And period cramps, when it comes to that, I feel like diabetes really affects that. And I brought this up to my doctor. I've talked with her about it. And I basically I was made to feel very dumb that I even brought that up and would think that diabetes actually impacts that or affects that. I have seen so many other women who have type 1 diabetes talk about this, and it is a common topic in diabetes circles, when people are getting together and talking about these things and talking about their struggles with type 1, it's a very common thing. It comes up a lot, especially with younger women. And so if you're struggling with that, if you are trying to figure that out, know that you're not alone, because I am still trying to figure that out, still trying to make adjustments where there need to be adjustments and try to do what's best for my body during those times, because it is difficult and it does change month to month. And it can be kind of discouraging because it feels like, okay, I'm on top of it. My numbers have been really good. And then the next month it just kind of goes downhill. So have my doctors been helpful in that area specifically? No, not at all, actually. And I feel like a lot of type 1 diabetics are dealing with that, especially ladies who are dealing with hormones. Another question that I got was the number one assumption people make when they hear you have type 1. The number one assumption that I have had people come to me with is, you can't have sugar. You can't eat normal foods. You can't any of that. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I kind of get annoyed when people think that. Not going to lie, because I've dealt with this for 14 years. And one of the very first things when people find out I have type 1, or I tell them I do, or they see my pump or whatever, they just automatically assume you can't have food. Like, you can't go out to eat. You can't eat normally, you are weird, and you can't have sugar and all these different things. And that is not true. As a type 1 diabetic, I can have any kind of food that I want. I can eat anything that I want. I can have sugar. It just is a little bit different because I am actually having to give myself insulin for that food that I'm eating or that sugar I'm having or whatever. Growing up, I always remember teachers and different things. People at church would always get me sugar-free gum, sugar-free candy, sugar-free this and that. And it was always annoying to me growing up, especially because I'm like, I can have anything that the kids are having around me. It's just that I have to bolus for it. And it's just kind of annoying when people don't understand that, or they make that assumption and then they won't hear you out about it. I guess that's probably the most irritating part of it, is when you try to explain, no, I can have that food. I can eat that. It's just that I have to count for it. And it's a little bit different than, just eating it and not thinking anything about it. Sometimes people make that assumption and then they won't hear you out when you're actually trying to explain. So that can be a little bit irritating. The next question that I got, which is a really good one because this varies from diabetic to diabetic. The question is, do you carry supplies with you everywhere you go? Personally, yes, I do. There have been so many times in my life where I have, like, right now, kind of emergency needed something, and I always want to be prepared. I always want to have that when I need it, because our family's on the go, we're traveling a lot, we're doing different things like that, and I don't want to be somewhere and have to drive, 30, 45 minutes back to our camper or to a hotel, or even back home if we're somewhere closer to home, but I don't have my stuff. I would rather just be able to change a pod if I need to, or change my Dexcom if I need to, or any of my monitors, any of my devices, whatever. If I need to do something with those, I want to be able to do it while we're out, when it needs to happen, because that is one of the most stressful things I would say about diabetes, is not having what you need when you need it, and having something go bad or whatever. It's just very stressful, especially when you're out in public and people don't understand what's happening. One time now this is something that I didn't have on hand. One time my actual meter, which controls my insulin and what I use to correct and bolus and do all the stuff that I need to do when I eat, I was actually sitting down eating a meal, and my monitor, my meter, actually quit on me. Like, the buttons wouldn't work. It wouldn't turn on. No matter what we tried, it was gone. And so I panicked because I had just eaten and I hadn't bolused, and I was getting ready to bolus when I found out that it wouldn't turn on. And I remember the waitress, Dad had asked her for, I think we were trying to change maybe the batteries or something like that, and had asked her for something, and she was panicking because she had no idea what was happening or what to do, and she was trying to figure it out, and she's asking me all these questions, and I'm like, you know what? Now is not the time. I am not going to explain my whole life story to you right now. I'm trying to get this going. So there are different times in my life where I haven't had what I needed, but for the most part, I've always had what I needed prepared and on hand. But I know a lot of diabetics who don't do that. They would rather just go home and figure it out because all their stuff's there and they don't want to have to carry around a bag or whatever. But I always have a purse with me anyways. I just have all my stuff in there ready to go. And it's made it a lot more stress-free when I go out. Another question that I got was, are you ever embarrassed about people seeing your pump? This is a great question, and one I feel like a lot of young girls struggle with. And I definitely went through a period where I did struggle with people seeing, my Dexcom on my arm or my pump on my leg or something like that. And people would ask about it. And it would make me a little self-conscious because it was like, oh, you noticed that. And, just kind of reminded me, oh, people can see it. And people are probably wondering what I have on my arm, what I have on my leg. I definitely went through a time where I was embarrassed about it, a little bit self-conscious about it when people would ask. But I really, after 14 years, I've just gotten to the point where it's a way for me to share my story with people, and it's a way that the Lord can use it to impact people. And if they see it, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not embarrassing. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It helps keep me alive, quite literally. So it's not something that I am not going to wear or use or whatever just because people can see it. So I had a couple more questions, but for time's sake, I'm going to stop there. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that that just gave you maybe a little bit of insight into my personal life, but I am trying to use it to impact people the best that I can. And it is kind of hard to do that when not as many people are asking about it. But I try to do my best to bring it into conversation when I can. If someone does ask me, I will share and bring my kind of testimony into that, because the Lord has taught me a lot through dealing with diabetes and through that journey. So I hope that it encouraged you, and I hope that it's something that maybe inspired you a little bit. You don't have to be discouraged and weighed down by your health struggles, whatever you may be dealing with. You can use it as part of your testimony and use it to encourage others in their faith and their walk with the Lord as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will talk to y'all very, very soon. Bye, guys.